Hello, how are you? During this course we have learned to read, to speak, to listen and also to write. Here today we are going to focus on writing. We are going to learn different extractors or different words that can help us to connect and join sentences. The idea is that when you write a text, we should convey your information properly and should create sentence with a certain connection and coherence as well. Both aspects are important in a test. Connection as well as coherence are fundamental in order to understand it properly and get the main idea of your own writing, okay? Therefore, we are going to learn different words that can help us to join sentence, apart from and, but, the conjunctions, the most common conjunctions. For example, expressions like on the one hand and on the other hand. This expression, this de can be omitted. We can say on one hand, on the other hand. This expression is quite commonly found in written tests when we want to express our own opinion. On one hand, I think that it's, for example, on one hand, it's true, for example, but on the other hand, I don't agree. I don't agree. In this case, we express our opinion about something. It's usually found at the beginning of, at the end of a test. When we convey the idea and finally express our own opinion about what we are talking about, okay? Another connector should be, for example, whereas. Whereas means in Spanish, mientras que. Mientras que. It is quite commonly found in text. And for example, a sentence, I love football, whereas Paul likes tennis, for example. This is a common way of connecting two different sentences and two different informations, right? Another one, in order to connect a test, however, nevertheless, however and nevertheless means more or less the same, sin embargo, in Spanish. Okay, these are connect sentences and even paragraphs that convey different information, right? Okay, another connector, important and very useful in written tests, should be since. Since means ya que, puesto que. An example could be since you are working, I can cook. It's the reason why do you something. Since is usually found in a written test. Another one should be, for example, as a consequence of this, okay? As a consequence of this, I'll do it, okay? This connects sentences in a test. It's also very common. Or in contrast with, in contrast or in contrast with. For example, in contrast with your opinion, I'll do it. For example, this should be, these are connectors, elements that help us to create cohesion in a text and link different words, right? Cohesion is very important in tests. The idea, if we create a text with isolated sentence without meaning, the text is not understood, okay? Well, and adverbs are usually very common in tests. For example, fortunately, or the negative form unfortunately. The negative form is un. In English, an important way to negate words is with the prefix an. Unfortunately, desafortunadamente, fortunately, afortunadamente. Adverbs like usually, rarely, seldom, all these adverbs help us to join sentences and create a meaning. For example, unfortunately, he passed the exam, for example. In this case, unfortunately, is a connector that is usually placed at the beginning of the sentence, not at the end of the sentence. As well, is another connector. It's close to, for example, also and to, but as well is usually placed at the end of the sentence. It means también. Okay, for example, I like teaching as well. This adverb is usually placed at the end of the sentence, as well to is usually placed at the end as well and means the same, and also should be placed here before the verb. I also like teaching, I like teaching as well, or I like teaching too. Both, all the sentence means more or less the same, but we use different adverbs in order to join them. Other connectors are related to the end of a test. In order to end a test, we can use, for example, finally, in my opinion, from my point of view, these are expressions that are usually placed at the end of the test. When we start a test, we try to introduce the main idea we want to convey. Later, we develop the idea, and finally, we use these elements in order to close the test. Finally, finalmente, in my opinion, desde mi punto de vista, or from my point of view, it's the same. In my opinion, is much more colloquial, and from my point of view, is much more formal. Okay? Well, this is a brief introduction about the most common connectors in order to create a suitable test. Sometimes for us it's difficult to write a test. We are not used to writing, but we should never forget that when we learn a language, a foreign language, we should always master 4 skills: writing, reading, listening, and speaking. All of them are equally important, okay? Well, see you next day. I hope to have helped you to do it properly. Bye-bye.